What happens when a billionaire's empire crumbles in a single moment, and when a mysterious child appears with an impossible promise that could change everything? Marcus Wellington thought he knew the answer to both questions. He was wrong. Marcus Wellington had built his fortune on being right about everything: real estate, technology, people. He could predict market crashes, spot talent from across a crowded room, and close deals that others said were impossible. But he never saw the truck coming. Now he sat in Riverside Memorial Park every Tuesday at exactly 3 o'clock, not because he wanted to, but because Dr. Sarah Chen insisted that fresh air and routine were essential for his recovery. Recovery. The word tasted bitter in his mouth. 6 months since the accident that shattered his spine and everything he thought he knew about control. The doctors had been clear. Complete spinal cord injury. No feeling below the waist. No hope of ever walking again. Marcus had fired 3 specialists for using the word impossible. The 4th one, Dr. Rodriguez, had simply handed him a pamphlet about accepting life changes and walked out of the room. That Tuesday started like all the others. Marcus positioned his wheelchair beneath the old maple tree, pulled out his tablet, and tried to focus on the quarterly reports that no longer seemed to matter. Wellington Industries was still running, still profitable, but without him at the helm, it felt like watching someone else's life through a window. The park was nearly empty. A jogger passed by without making eye contact. An elderly woman fed pigeons near the fountain. And then there was movement to his left. A girl, maybe 9 years old, with curly red hair and paint-stained overalls, walking directly toward him. Marcus tensed. Children made him nervous now. They stared. They asked questions their parents were too polite to voice. He pretended to be engrossed in his tablet. "Excuse me, mister," the girl said, stopping right in front of his wheelchair. Marcus looked up, reluctantly. "Yes?" The girl studied his face with unsettling intensity. "Are you Marcus Wellington?" His blood went cold. How did a child know his name? Marcus was no longer the public figure he once was. He'd withdrawn from all media, all public appearances. "Who's asking?" "My name is Luna Martinez," she said with startling formality. "And I can make you walk again." Marcus laughed. It erupted from somewhere deep and harsh, the sound he'd perfected for dismissing foolish investors and naive employees. "Is that so? And what makes you think that, Luna Martinez?" Luna didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled a small wooden stool from seemingly nowhere and sat down in front of him, meeting his eyes at level. "Because I know why you can't walk, and it's not what the doctors told you." The laughter died in Marcus's throat. "Little girl, I don't know what game you're playing, but—" "You fired Mrs. Elena Vasquez 3 years ago," Luna interrupted. "Right, before Christmas. You accused her of stealing money from your company." Marcus felt the world tilt. Elena Vasquez, his former head of human resources. A woman who had worked for Wellington Industries for 12 years, who had been like family, until Marcus discovered discrepancies in the payroll system. Money missing. All trails leading back to Elena's access codes. "How do you know that name?" he whispered. Luna's expression softened slightly. "Because she's my grandmother, and she never stole anything from you." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Grandmother. This child was Eleanor's granddaughter, the woman he'd destroyed publicly, whose reputation he'd shattered, whose career he'd ended with a single phone call to every major company in the city. "That's impossible," Marcus said, but his voice lacked conviction. The evidence was clear, the money trail, the access logs, everything pointed to someone who knew exactly how to make it look like Grandma Elena did it, Luna said quietly. "Someone who knew the system better than anyone, someone who had master access to everything." Marcus stared at her. "You're just a child. "You don't understand corporate systems or Jeremy Walsh," Luna said simply. The name hit Marcus like ice water. Jeremy Walsh, his former chief technology officer, his protege, the man he'd promoted to head of digital security just months before the incident, the man who had supposedly discovered Eleanor's theft, the man who had left Wellington Industries 6 months later for a competitor, taking half of Marcus's tech team with him. Jeremy had master access, Luna continued. He could make it look like anyone did anything, and he needed money because he was starting his own company. He stole from you, and he let Grandma Elena take the blame. Marcus's hands gripped the armrests of his wheelchair until his knuckles went white. Even if that were true, and I'm not saying it is, what does any of this have to do with my legs? Luna tilted her head, studying him with those unnervingly mature eyes. When did the headaches start? What headaches? The ones that kept you awake at night. The ones that made you angry all the time. The ones that started right after you fired. Grandma Elena. Marcus felt his breath catch. The headaches. He'd mentioned them to no one, not even his doctors. They'd started as small aches, barely noticeable, but over the months they'd grown stronger, more frequent. By the time of his accident, he was taking painkillers daily just to function. How could you possibly know about? Because guilt has symptoms, Luna said matter-of-factly. Grandma Eleanor told me. She said when people carry heavy guilt, their bodies start to break down. First the head, then the heart, then everything else. That's ridiculous, Marcus said, but his voice shook. Medical conditions don't work that way. My accident was just that, an accident. Luna stood up from her stool. The night of your accident, you were driving to Grandma Elena's house. Marcus went very still. No, I wasn't. You were going to apologize. You'd finally figured out it was Jeremy, hadn't you? You found something, some proof, and you were driving through the rain to make it right. The tablet slipped from Marcus's hands and clattered to the ground. She was right. That night, 6 months ago, Marcus had been working late when he discovered Jeremy's hidden partition on the server. Encrypted files showing the real money trail. Evidence that Jeremy had been skimming funds for months, using Elena's access codes. To cover his tracks, Marcus had called Elena's house immediately, but there was no answer. So he'd gotten in his car, despite the storm, despite the late hour, desperate to tell her in person that he'd been wrong, that he was sorry, that he would fix everything. He never made it. The truck ran the red light just 3 blocks from Elena's. A house. You can't know all this, Marcus said, his voice barely a whisper. Luna picked up his fallen tablet and handed it back to him. Grandma Elena knew you were coming that night. She saw the accident happen. She was the one who called the ambulance. Marcus felt tears he hadn't shed since childhood burning behind his eyes. She was there. She rode with you to the hospital. She held your hand in the ambulance while you were unconscious. She stayed in the waiting room during your surgery. But she never visited. No one told me. She tried, but your family wouldn't let her see you. They thought she was just some woman trying to take advantage of your situation. They had security keep her out. Marcus closed his eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of what he was hearing. Elena had been there. After everything he'd done to her, she'd still tried to help him. Where is she now? He asked. Luna's expression grew sad. Home. She's been sick since that night. Worried about you. Blaming herself. Blaming herself. For what? She thinks if she'd answered the phone when you called, you wouldn't have been driving in the storm. She thinks your accident is her fault. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. All this time, he'd been drowning in guilt about Elena, and she'd been drowning in guilt about him. 2 people destroying themselves over one man's lies. I need to see her, Marcus said suddenly. I need to tell her the truth about Jeremy. I need to apologize. Luna shook her head. She doesn't want to see you. She thinks you still believe she stole from you. She thinks you hate her. I don't hate her. I never hated her. I was an idiot who trusted the wrong person. Then prove it, Luna said. How? Luna pointed to his legs. Try to move your toes. Marcus stared at her. What does that have to do with anything? Grandma Elena says. The body remembers truth even when the mind forgets it. She says sometimes healing starts from the inside out. That's not how spinal injuries work. Try, Luna said firmly. Marcus looked down at his legs, motionless, beneath the blanket draped across his lap. He'd tried moving them thousands of times in the hospital during physical therapy, late at night when despair kept him awake. Nothing ever happened, but something in Luna's voice, some quality of absolute certainty, made him close his eyes and focus. He thought about Elena, about the way she used to bring him coffee during late meetings, about how she'd stayed late to help him prepare for board presentations, about how she'd remembered his mother's birthday every year and made sure flowers were sent. He tried to move his toes. Nothing. I told you, he said, opening his eyes. It doesn't work like that. Luna smiled for the first time since she'd approached him. It doesn't work yet. But it will. How can you be so sure? Because Grandma Elena forgave you the day you fired her. She said you were a good man who made a bad mistake. She said someday you'd figure out the truth and come looking for her. Marcus felt fresh tears threatening. She really said that? Every day, even when she got sicker, even when the doctors said her heart was giving out from stress. She kept saying, my Marcus will figure it out. He's smarter than he thinks. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. His Marcus. After everything he'd done, she still claimed him as family. What can I do? He asked. How can I fix this? Luna picked up her wooden stool. Come back here tomorrow, same time, and bring something. What? Proof. The real evidence about Jeremy. The files you found. Everything. How did you know about the files? Luna was already walking away. Grandma Eleanor says the truth always finds a way to the surface. She says you just have to be brave enough to look at it. Wait, Marcus called after her. How do I contact you? How do I find you? Luna turned back one last time. You don't find me, Mr. Wellington. I find you. Same as today. And then she was gone, disappearing into the trees like she'd never been there at all. Marcus sat alone under the maple tree for another hour, staring at his legs and thinking about Elena Vasquez, about guilt and forgiveness, and little girls who spoke like they held the secrets of the universe. That night, for the first time in months, Marcus called his assistant Robert and asked him to retrieve something from the company servers. The encrypted partition on Jeremy Walsh's old system, Marcus said. I need everything, every file, every communication, every piece of evidence we have. Sir, that information was used in the investigation 3 years ago. The case is closed. The case was wrong, Marcus said quietly, and I need to prove it. 2 hours later, Robert arrived at Marcus's penthouse with a stack of printed documents and a flash drive. Marcus spread everything across his dining room table and began to read. Bank records, server logs, email chains, digital fingerprints that painted a clear picture of Jeremy's deception. It was all there. Jeremy's gambling debts, his secret meetings with competitors, his manipulation of the payroll system using Elena's credentials. The evidence was overwhelming, damning, and 3 years too late. Marcus picked up his phone and dialed Elena's number. It rang 4 times before a familiar voice answered. Hello, Elena, Marcus whispered. It's Marcus Wellington. There was a long silence. Then, quietly, Marcus, are you all right? Even now, after everything, her first concern was for him. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion. Elena, I found the truth about Jeremy. I have proof. You never stole anything. I'm so sorry. I'm so incredibly sorry. Another silence. Then, the sound of quiet crying. Elena, are you there? I'm here, she said through her tears. I'm here, Marcus. I always knew you'd figure it out. Can I see you? Tomorrow. I need to apologize in person. I need to make this right. Marcus, Eleanor said gently, I forgave you years ago. You don't need to. Yes, I do. Please, let me try to fix what I broke. Eleanor was quiet for a long moment. Your accident, she said finally. How are you doing? Really? Marcus looked down. At his legs. I'm learning that some things can't be fixed with money or power. But maybe they can be fixed with truth. Tomorrow then, Elena said. But Marcus, bring Luna with you. She's been worried about you. You know I met her? Elena's laugh was soft and familiar. Marcus, dear, who do you think told her where to find? You? That night Marcus dreamed of walking, not running or dancing or any of the grand physical feats he'd lost. Just walking. Simple, ordinary, impossible walking, and in the dream Elena was there, walking beside him, telling him he was going to be just fine. When he woke up, Marcus tried to move his toes, still nothing, but for the first time since his accident, that nothing felt like the beginning of something rather than the end of everything. The next morning arrived grey and drizzling, but Marcus felt lighter than he had in months. He'd spent the early hours organizing Jeremy's evidence into clear, undeniable proof of Elena's innocence. Bank statements showing Jeremy's mounting gambling debts, server logs proving he'd accessed Elena's credentials, email chains revealing his plan to frame her for his own theft. But more than that, Marcus had made other preparations. Phone calls to lawyers, messages to board members. The beginning of what would be the largest public apology and financial restitution in Wellington Industries history. At 2:45, Marcus arrived at Riverside Memorial Park 15 minutes early, just as he had yesterday. The rain had stopped, leaving everything fresh and clean. He positioned his wheelchair under the maple tree and waited. Luna appeared at exactly 3 o'clock, emerging from the same cluster of trees as before. Today she wore a yellow raincoat and carried a small backpack. She approached him with the same confident stride, but Marcus noticed something different in her expression. Hope maybe, or anticipation. Did you bring the files? She asked without preamble. Marcus patted the folder on his lap. Everything. Enough to clear your grandmother's name completely. Enough to put Jeremy Walsh in prison for fraud. Luna nodded, approvingly. And did you call her? Last night. She's expecting us. Us. She asked me to bring you, said you've been worried about me. Luna's serious expression cracked slightly, revealing the 9-year-old underneath. Maybe a little. Marcus found himself smiling. Just a little. Grandma Eleanor cried every time your name was on the news. After your accident, she lit candles. And for you every Sunday at church. She made me promise to find you when you were ready. Ready for what? Luna sat down on her wooden stool. To let go of the guilt. To stop punishing yourself. To try walking again. Luna, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but spinal cord injuries don't heal because someone feels better emotionally. Did you try moving your toes last night? Marcus hesitated. Yes. And? Nothing happened. Luna studied his face carefully. But something felt different, didn't it? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. She was right. Something had felt different, not in his legs, but in his chest. Like a weight lifting, like breathing after holding his breath for 3 years. How? Do you know these things? He asked. Luna shrugged. Grandma Elena teaches me. She says the body and heart are connected in ways doctors don't always understand. She says sometimes people stay broken because they think they deserve to be broken. And you think, I believe I deserve this? I think you've been punishing yourself for trusting Jeremy, for hurting Grandma Elena, for not being as smart as you thought you were. Luna's voice was gentle but unflinching. I think you made your accident mean more than it really meant. Marcus felt those words settle into something deep inside him. Made his accident mean more than it really meant. Was that what he'd been doing? Turning a random tragedy into some kind of cosmic punishment for his mistakes? Try again, Luna said. Right now. But this time, don't think about what you've lost. Think about what you want to give back. Marcus closed his eyes. Instead of focusing on his legs, he thought about Elena, about the years of friendship he'd thrown away, about the public humiliation he'd put her through, about the financial ruin he'd caused. And then he thought about making it right, about clearing her name, about restoring her reputation, about the foundation he was going to establish in her honor, about all the good he could still do if he just had the chance. He tried to move his toes. For a split second, just a heartbeat, he could have sworn he felt something. A flicker, a whisper of sensation. His eyes flew open. Did you see that? Luna was grinning. I saw it. You saw what? I'm not even sure anything happened. Your right foot moved, just a tiny bit, but it moved. Marcus stared down at his feet. They looked exactly the same as always, motionless, but that flicker of sensation lingered in his memory like the echo of a bell. That's impossible, he whispered. Maybe, Luna said. Or maybe impossible is just another word for something that hasn't happened yet. Marcus looked at this strange, wise child who had appeared in his life like some kind of miracle. Are you ready to go see your grandmother? Luna nodded and folded up her stool. She's making your favorite soup. How does she know what my favorite soup is? She remembers everything about the people she loves, Luna said simply, even when they forget to love themselves. As they made their way toward the park exit, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in months. Not quite hope, that felt too big, too dangerous, but something smaller and steadier. Possibility. The sense that maybe, just maybe, his story wasn't over yet. Behind them, the maple tree swayed in the afternoon breeze, its leaves rustling like whispered promises. And if Marcus had looked back, he might have seen something remarkable, 2 sets of footprints in the soft earth where he was certain only one should have been. But Marcus was looking forward now, toward Elena's house, toward apologies that needed to be made, and bridges that needed to be rebuilt, toward the long, difficult work of becoming the man he should have been all along. The healing, it seemed, had already begun. Elena Vasquez lived in a modest blue house on Maple Street, with white shutters and a garden that bloomed despite years of neglect. As Robert, Marcus's driver, helped transfer him from the car to his wheelchair, Marcus noticed the peeling paint on the front steps and felt a fresh wave of shame. This woman, who had once managed million-dollar budgets, now lived in a house that needed repairs she probably couldn't afford. Luna skipped ahead and opened the front door without knocking. "Grandma Eleanor, he's here!" The woman who appeared in the doorway looked smaller than Marcus remembered. Elena Vasquez had always been a force of nature in the office, commanding respect with her sharp suits and sharper intelligence. Now she wore a simple green sweater and moved slowly, but her eyes held the same warmth that had made her beloved by every employee at Wellington Industries. "Marcus," she said softly, and her voice carried no anger, no bitterness, only concern. Marcus gripped the folder of evidence tighter. "Elena, Come inside first," she interrupted gently. "We'll talk properly." The living room was filled with photographs, family pictures, graduations, birthdays, but what caught Marcus's attention were the framed newspaper clippings on the side table. Articles about Wellington Industries' success. Pictures of Marcus receiving business awards. Elena had kept them all, even after he'd destroyed her life. "You kept these?" Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. Elena settled into a worn armchair, across from him. "You were like the son I never had, Marcus. Success doesn't erase love." Luna disappeared into the kitchen, and Marcus could hear her moving around. The familiar sounds of meal preparation, the normalcy of it, made everything feel more surreal. "Elena, I need to say this before I lose my courage." Marcus opened the folder and spread the documents across the coffee table between them. "Jeremy Walsh stole that money, every penny. He used your access codes to cover his tracks. I have proof now, bank records, server logs, everything." Elena leaned forward and studied the papers. Her hands shook slightly as she read. "Jeremy," she said finally, "I always wondered. He was the one who discovered the theft. He seemed almost eager to point the finger at me. He needed money for his gambling debts. And when he decided to start his own company, he needed you, gone, so he could recruit your entire team without interference." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "I trusted him completely. I thought he was protecting the company when he came to me with evidence against you." Elena was quiet for a long time, reading through the documents. When she finally looked up, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Do you know what the worst part was?" she asked. "Not losing my job, not the humiliation. It was watching you. Believe I could betray you. After 12 years of working side by side, you looked at me like I was a stranger." Marcus felt something break inside his chest. "I was such a fool." "You were human," Elena said firmly. "You trusted someone you shouldn't have. That doesn't make you evil, Marcus. It makes you someone who learned a hard lesson." From the kitchen came the sound of Luna humming while she cooked. The melody was unfamiliar but soothing, like a lullaby from another time. "I'm going to make this right," Marcus said. "Public apology, full financial restitution. Jeremy will face charges. Your reputation will be completely restored." Elena reached across the table and took his hand. "And what about your reputation? What about your healing?" "What do you mean?" "You've been carrying this guilt for 3 years, Marcus. It's been eating you alive. Even before your accident, I could see it in your face during business meetings that made the news. You looked haunted." Marcus stared down at their joined hands. Elena's fingers were warm, steady, real. "The headache started right after I fired you. They got worse every month. By the time of my accident, I was barely sleeping, barely eating. I was destroying myself from the inside out." "Guilt is poison," Elena said softly. "It doesn't just hurt the heart. It hurts everything." Luna appeared in the doorway carrying a tray with 3 bowls of soup and a plate of fresh bread. "Grandma's famous chicken soup," she announced. "She says it heals everything." As they ate, Marcus found himself telling Elena about the months after his accident. The despair, the isolation, the way he'd shut out everyone who tried to help. Elena listened without judgment, occasionally asking gentle questions that helped him understand his own experience better. "The doctors said I'd never walk again," Marcus said, "and I believed them completely, but Luna seems to think—" He trailed off, looking at the girl who was quietly eating her soup while listening to every word. Elena smiled. "Luna has always been special. Even as a tiny child, she understood things others couldn't see." "What kind of things?" Marcus asked. Luna looked up from her bowl. "Hearts," she said simply. "I can see what's broken in people's hearts, and I can see when they're ready to fix it." "That's quite a gift," Marcus said carefully. "It's not a gift," Luna corrected. "It's just paying attention. Most people are too busy to pay attention." After lunch, Elena excused herself for a nap, and Luna led Marcus to the back porch. The garden was overgrown but beautiful, full of wild flowers and herbs that seemed to grow wherever they pleased. "This is where I come to think," Luna said, settling on the porch steps. Marcus positioned his wheelchair nearby. "What do you think about?" "People, mostly. Why they hurt each other. Why they're so afraid to forgive themselves." Luna plucked a dandelion and twirled it between her fingers. "Why they think broken means worthless. And what conclusions have you reached?" Luna smiled. "That people are like gardens. Sometimes they look dead, but the roots are still alive underneath. They just need the right conditions to grow again." Marcus looked out at the wild garden. "What are the right conditions?" "Truth, forgiveness, love, and time." Luna looked at him seriously. "You have the first three now. Time is the only one left." "Luna, can I ask you something? How did you know about my headaches, about the night of my accident, things that no one else could possibly know?" Luna was quiet for a moment, still twirling the dandelion. "Grandma Elena told me some of it. She saw your accident happen, so she knew where you were going and why, but not everything. You knew things about my headaches, my insomnia, my state of mind, things I never told anyone." Luna looked at him with those unsettling, mature eyes. "Sometimes when people are in pain, they leave traces of it behind, like footprints in sand. If you know how to look, you can follow the trail back to where the pain started." "That's not a normal way for a 9-year-old to talk." "I'm not a normal 9-year-old, Luna said matter-of-factly. "But then again, you're not a normal billionaire either. Normal billionaires don't sit in parks wishing they could take back the worst mistake of their lives." Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. There was something otherworldly about this child, something that defied easy explanation. "Luna, who are you really?" Before she could answer, Elena called from inside the house. "Marcus, could you come here, please?" They found Elena in the living room, holding a thick manila envelope. "I've been wondering whether to give you this," she said. "I wasn't sure you were ready." "What is it?" Elena handed him the envelope. "Letters. I wrote you one every month for 3 years. I never sent them, but I kept writing them anyway. It helped me process what happened." Marcus opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside were dozens of handwritten letters, each dated and carefully folded. He pulled out the first one, dated just 2 weeks after he'd fired her. "Dear Marcus," he read aloud, "I want you to know that I forgive you. I understand why you believe Jeremy's evidence. He was very clever about how he framed me, but I also want you to know that I'm not angry. I'm sad. Sad that 12 years of trust could be destroyed so easily. Sad that you're going to blame yourself for this someday when you discover the truth. Please don't carry guilt that isn't yours to carry. You were deceived by someone you trusted. That makes you a victim too." Marcus's voice broke. He couldn't continue reading. "Every letter says something similar," Elena said gently. "I forgave you the day it happened, Marcus. I've been waiting 3 years for you to forgive yourself." Luna suddenly stood up from the couch. "Try again," she said urgently. "Try what?" "Moving your toes, right now, while you're holding Grandma Elena's forgiveness in your hands." Marcus looked down at the letters, then at Elena's kind face, then at Luna's expectant expression. The whole scene felt surreal, like something from a dream. "I don't think—" "Just try," Luna insisted. "Please." Marcus closed his eyes and focused on his feet. He thought about Elena's words. About forgiveness he didn't deserve, but was being given anyway. About guilt he'd carried like chains around his ankles. About the possibility that maybe, just maybe, healing was about more than doctors and medicine and physical therapy. He tried to move his toes, The sensation was unmistakable this time, not just in his right foot, but in both feet. A definite twitch, a flicker of movement that made his eyes fly open in shock. "Did you see that?" he gasped. Elena was staring at his feet, with wide eyes. "Marcus, your toes moved. I saw them move." Luna was grinning like she'd just witnessed magic. I told you it would work." "But how is this possible?" Marcus asked. "The doctors said the nerve damage was permanent. They said the doctors were treating your spine," Luna interrupted. "But your spine wasn't the only thing that was broken." Marcus stared at her. "What do you mean?" Luna knelt beside his wheelchair and placed her small hand on his arm. "Some injuries go deeper than bone and nerve. Some injuries happen to the part of us that believes we deserve good things, that believes we're worthy of healing. Luna, you're talking about things that what? That don't make sense? That can't be proven in a laboratory?" Luna's voice was gentle but firm. "Mr. Wellington, 3 months ago you were so consumed with guilt that you could barely function. Today you're sitting in Grandma Elena's living room, holding her forgiveness in your hands, surrounded by love you thought you'd lost forever. Your heart has been healing for weeks. Maybe your body is just catching up." Marcus looked between Luna and Elena, both watching him with expressions of hope and certainty. Nothing about this made medical sense. Nothing about this followed the rules he'd lived by his entire life, but his toes had definitely moved. Over the next hour, Marcus tried several more times. Each attempt brought a little more sensation, a little more movement. Not much, just tiny twitches and flickers, but undeniably real. Elena watched with tears streaming down her face. "It's happening," she whispered. "It's really happening." As the afternoon wore on, Marcus found himself sharing stories he'd never told anyone. About his childhood, his fears, his dreams for Wellington Industries that went beyond just making money. Luna listened to everything with that unsettling attention, occasionally asking questions that cut straight to the heart of whatever he was. Discussing. "You want to do more than build buildings," she observed at one point. "You want to build hope. What makes you say that? The way your voice changes when you talk about the housing project for veterans, the community center for kids. Those aren't just business ventures for you." Marcus realized she was right. Somewhere along the way, his focus had shifted from pure profit to projects that could make a real difference. Projects like the ones Elena used to advocate for when she worked for him. "Elena," he said suddenly, "I want you to come back." Elena looked startled. "Come back where?" "To Wellington Industries, as head of community development. I want to fund every project you ever pitched to me that I was too focused on profit margins to approve." Elena shook her head. "Marcus, you don't need to—" "This isn't charity or guilt," Marcus said firmly. "It's recognition. You were always the heart of the company, the part that cared about more than just money. I need that back. The company needs that back." Luna suddenly stood up and walked to the window. "It's getting late," she said. "You should try walking to the car." Both adults stared at her. "Luna," Eleanor said gently, "Marcus is in a wheelchair. He can't—" "He can try," Luna said, turning. "Back to them. Not walking, but maybe standing, maybe taking one step." The suggestion hung in the air like a challenge. Marcus felt his heart racing. The small movements in his toes were one thing, but actually standing, actually putting weight on his legs. "I don't think I'm ready for that," he said. Luna walked over and knelt beside his wheelchair again. "Mr. Wellington, what's the worst thing that could happen if you try? I could fall. I could hurt myself. I could look foolish. And what's the worst thing that could happen if you don't try?" Marcus considered this. "I stay exactly where I am." "Which would you rather live with? The possibility of falling or the certainty of never trying?" Elena moved to Marcus's other side. "I'll help you. If you want to try, I'll help you." Marcus looked at these two females who had somehow become the most important people in his world. One who had forgiven him when he didn't deserve it. One who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. "Okay," he said quietly, "let's try." Elena locked the wheels of his wheelchair while Luna positioned herself in front of him. Together, they helped him lean forward and place his hands on the arms of the chair. For a moment, Marcus just sat there, gathering courage. "Remember," Luna said, "you're not trying to walk, you're just trying to stand, just trying to prove to yourself that you're stronger than you think you are." Marcus took a deep breath and pushed. For a terrifying moment, he thought his legs would buckle immediately. But then he felt it. Sensation, strength, the memory of what it felt like to support his own weight. He rose slowly, Elena and Luna steadying him, until he was standing upright for the first time in 6 months. "Oh my God," he whispered. He was shaking from the effort, and he could only stand for maybe 10 seconds before exhaustion forced him back into the wheelchair. But for those 10 seconds, Marcus Wellington was standing on his own 2 feet. Elena was crying openly now. "Marcus, you did it. You actually did it." Luna was beaming. "Tomorrow we'll try for 15 seconds, then 20, then a step." As Robert helped Marcus back into the car for the drive home, Elena pressed a small wrapped package into his hands. "What's this?" "Something that belonged to you. Something I saved." Marcus didn't open it until he was back in his penthouse that evening. Inside the wrapping was a small framed photo. Marcus and Eleanor at the company Christmas party 2 years before Jeremy's betrayal. They were both laughing at something off-camera, their faces bright with the easy friendship that had made them such an effective team. On the back of the frame, Elena had written, "For when you need to remember who you really are." That night, Marcus tried moving his toes again. This time, he could wiggle them freely. Not a lot, but enough to convince him that something extraordinary was happening. He called Dr. Rodriguez, his former neurologist. "Doctor, I know this sounds impossible, but I think I'm regaining some feeling in my legs." There was a pause. "Marcus, I explained to you that with your type of injury—" "I know what you explained, but I'm telling you something is changing. I'd like to schedule some tests." Another pause. "Of course, we can run some new scans, but Marcus, I don't want you to get your hopes up. Sometimes patients experience phantom sensations that feel like real movement, but, Doctor, today I stood up. For 10 seconds, I stood up and supported my own weight. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute. "I'll schedule you for tomorrow morning," Dr. Rodriguez said finally. "We'll run every test available." As Marcus prepared for bed that night, he thought about Luna's words, about hearts healing before bodies, about forgiveness as medicine, about the possibility that the most important healing happened in places doctors couldn't see or measure. He looked at the photo Elena had given him, at the man he used to be before guilt and pride and fear had nearly destroyed him. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus could see a path back to that person, not the same, but better, wiser, more grateful for the gifts he'd been given, and more committed to using them well. Tomorrow would bring test results and medical explanations, and probably a lot of skeptical doctors. But tonight, Marcus Wellington went to sleep believing in miracles again, and in his dreams, he was walking through Elena's garden, while Luna pointed out which flowers were ready to bloom. Dr. Rodriguez stared at the computer screen for the 3rd time, his expression shifting from skepticism to confusion to something approaching awe. The MRI images showed something that should have been impossible. "Marcus," he said slowly, "I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest with me. Have you been receiving any experimental treatments? Any procedures I don't know about?" Marcus sat in his wheelchair in the sterile examination room, still processing what he'd just been told. No experimental treatments, no procedures, nothing you haven't documented. Then I have no medical explanation for what I'm seeing here. Dr. Rodriguez turned the monitor toward Marcus. 6 months ago, these scans showed complete spinal cord severing at the L2 vertebra. Today, I'm seeing what appears to be nerve regeneration. Not just healing, actual new growth. Marcus leaned forward to study the images. What does that mean? In layman's terms, your spinal cord is rebuilding itself. The damaged nerves are not only reconnecting, they're stronger than before. Dr. Rodriguez shook his head. Marcus, in 30 years of neurology, I've never seen anything like this. Spinal cord regeneration simply doesn't happen in humans. But it is happening. According to these scans, yes, your reflexes are returning. Your muscle tone is improving, and the electrical conductivity through your spine is nearly normal. Dr. Rodriguez pulled up another screen. We also ran cognitive and stress hormone tests. Your cortisol levels have dropped dramatically, your serotonin levels are optimal, and your brain scans show reduced inflammation in areas associated with depression and anxiety. Marcus thought about the past few weeks, the lifting of that crushing weight in his chest, the return of hope, the ability to sleep through the night without nightmares. So what you're telling me is that my entire nervous system is healing. That's exactly what I'm telling you. And Marcus, at the rate you're progressing, I believe you'll be walking unassisted within the next few months. Marcus felt tears threatening. After 6 months of being told his condition was permanent, hopeless, irreversible, this news felt like a resurrection. There's something else, Dr. Rodriguez continued, something I discovered when I reviewed your emergency room records from the night of your accident. What kind of something? The paramedic who treated you at the scene filed a report that I'd never seen before. It was misfiled in the general incident reports instead of your medical chart. Dr. Rodriguez pulled out a manila folder. According to this report, you weren't alone when they found you. Marcus felt his blood go cold. What do you mean? There was an elderly woman at the scene. She'd been holding pressure on your head wound to stop the bleeding. She rode with you in the ambulance and stayed with you until you were stabilized. In surgery. Dr. Rodriguez looked up from the report. The paramedic noted that she seemed to know exactly how to help you, like she had medical training. Elena, Marcus whispered. Elena Vasquez. The report lists her as the person who called 911 and administered first aid until the ambulance arrived. Dr. Rodriguez closed the folder. Marcus, this woman may have saved your life. If she hadn't been there to stop the bleeding, you might not have survived long enough to reach the hospital. Marcus sat in stunned silence. Elena hadn't just witnessed his accident, she'd saved him. After everything he'd done to her, she'd literally kept him alive. I need to call her, Marcus said. There's one more thing, Dr. Rodriguez said gently. The paramedic also noted something unusual. He said Mrs. Vasquez kept repeating something while she worked on you. A phrase. What phrase? She kept saying, "You're going to walk again, Marcus. You're going to walk again and make this right." Over and over, like a prayer. Marcus felt the world tilt around him. Elena had believed in his recovery from the very beginning, even before the doctors had pronounced his condition hopeless, even before he'd given up hope himself. Elena had been declaring his healing like it was already accomplished. That afternoon, Marcus drove straight to Elena's house. He found her in the garden with Luna, both of them tending to a patch of newly planted flowers. "Elena," Marcus called, as Robert helped him from the car to his wheelchair. "I just came from the doctor." Elena looked up, her face immediately concerned. "Is everything all right?" "More than all right. The scans show that my spinal cord is regenerating. Dr. Rodriguez says I'll be walking again within months. Luna dropped her gardening trowel and clapped her hands together. I told you it would work. Elena's face went pale. She sat down heavily on a nearby garden bench. Oh my goodness. Oh, Marcus, that's wonderful. Elena, there's something else, something I just learned. Marcus wheeled closer to her. You saved my life the night of my accident. You stopped the bleeding. You rode with me to the hospital. Elena's eyes filled with tears. I couldn't just leave you there. But why? After what I'd done to you, why would you help me? Elena reached for his hand. Because love doesn't stop, Marcus. Even when it's hurt, even when it's betrayed, real love doesn't stop. You were my family for 12 years. Family doesn't abandon. Family. Luna had been listening quietly, but now she spoke up. Tell him the rest, Grandma Elena. The rest? Marcus looked between them. Elena hesitated. Luna, I don't think he needs to know, Luna said firmly. He needs to understand why the healing worked. Elena took a deep breath. Marcus, that night when I found you in the wreckage, you were barely conscious. But you kept trying to say something over and over. What was I saying? You were saying my name, and you were saying you were sorry. Elena's voice broke. Even in your worst moment, even when you were dying, you were trying to apologize to me. Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. He'd been carrying the guilt of that night for months, but he'd never known that even unconscious, even broken, his heart had been seeking forgiveness. That's when I knew, Elena continued. I knew you'd figured out the truth about Jeremy. I knew you were coming to make things right. And I knew that if you survived, if you healed, you'd become the man I always believed you could be. Luna walked over and stood beside Marcus's wheelchair. That's why the healing worked, Mr. Wellington. Your body couldn't get better until your heart believed it deserved to get better. Grandma Elena's forgiveness wasn't just words, it was medicine. Marcus looked at this extraordinary child who had appeared in his life like some kind of angel. Luna, I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth. Okay, who are you really? How do you know the things you know? How did you find me in that park at exactly the moment I needed you most? Luna exchanged a look with Elena, who nodded encouragingly. The truth is, Luna said carefully, I did find you by accident that first day. I was in the park with my friends, and I saw you sitting under the tree, looking so sad. But something about you felt familiar. Familiar how? Like I'd been thinking about you my whole life without knowing why. Luna sat down on the grass in front of his wheelchair. When I got home and told Grandma Elena about the sad man in the wheelchair, she showed me your picture. That's when I understood. Understood what? Elena spoke up. Marcus, for 3 years I've been praying for your healing. Not just your legs, your heart, your spirit, your ability to forgive yourself. Luna grew up hearing those prayers. I've been praying for you too, Luna added. Ever since I was little, Grandma Elena would tell me stories about her work friend, Marcus, who was brilliant and kind, but sometimes forgot how to be happy. She said someday I might meet you and help you remember. Marcus felt chills running down his spine. You're telling me you've been praying for someone you'd never met? I was praying for family, Luna said simply. Grandma Elena said you were family, so that made you my family too. But the things you knew about me, about my accident, about my guilt, some of it Grandma Elena told me. But some of it... Luna paused, searching for the right words. Some of it I just knew. Like when you meet someone and you can tell they're carrying something heavy, even though they haven't told you what it is. Elena leaned forward. Marcus, Luna has always been sensitive to other people's pain. Even as a tiny child, she could tell when someone was hurting and what they needed to feel better. And you needed to forgive yourself, Luna said. You needed to believe you were worth healing. You needed to remember that making mistakes doesn't make you a bad person. Marcus sat quietly for a long moment, absorbing everything he'd heard. Finally, he looked at Luna. "So you're not some kind of magical healer or angel in disguise?" Luna giggled. "No, I'm just Luna. But maybe paying attention is its own kind of magic." Over the next month, Marcus's recovery accelerated beyond anything the doctors had predicted. He progressed from standing for seconds to standing for minutes, from taking one shaky step to walking across Elena's living room, from using crutches to walking with a cane to walking completely unassisted. But the most remarkable healing wasn't physical. It was the restoration of everything he'd thought he'd lost forever. Elena accepted his offer to return to Wellington Industries, but with a new title, Chief of Community Impact. Together they launched a foundation that funded housing for veterans, educational programs for underprivileged children, and healthcare initiatives for families in need. Every project Elena had ever proposed, every dream she'd had for making the company more than just a profit machine, became reality. Jeremy Walsh was arrested and charged with fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The trial made national news, finally clearing Elena's name completely and publicly. Jeremy's testimony revealed the extent of his manipulation. He'd been planning to frame Elena for months, building false evidence while secretly recruiting her team for his new company. Marcus personally called every business leader in the city to recommend Elena for any position she might want in the future. He took out full-page ads in major newspapers, publicly apologizing for his mistake and praising her integrity. But more than that, he made sure everyone knew that Elena Vasquez was the smartest, most ethical person he'd ever worked with. Luna became a regular fixture at Wellington Industries, visiting with Elena after school and charming everyone from security guards to board members. She had a way of seeing potential in people that others missed, and Marcus began consulting her on hiring decisions. Her insights were uncannily accurate. 6 months after their first meeting in the park, Marcus stood at the podium in Wellington Industries' main conference room, addressing the largest board meeting in the company's history. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "I want to tell you about the day I learned the difference between being successful and being valuable." He told them about Elena's wrongful termination, about Jeremy's betrayal, about his own guilt, and how it had nearly destroyed him, about a little girl who had taught him that healing comes from the inside out. "This company is implementing a new mission statement," Marcus continued. "We will measure our success not just by our profits, but by our impact, not just by what we build, but by whose lives we improve, not just by what we gain, but by what we give back." After the meeting, Marcus found Luna waiting for him in Elena's office. She was drawing pictures at the conference table while Elena worked at her computer. "How did it go?" Luna asked, looking up from her artwork. "I think we're going to change." "Some lives," Marcus said. Luna held up her drawing. It showed 3 figures holding hands, an older woman, a man with a cane, and a little girl with curly red hair. Above them, she'd written in careful letters, "Family isn't just blood. It's choosing to love each other anyway." "That's beautiful, Luna," Marcus said. "Is that us?" Luna nodded. "This is what we look like when we're all healed." That evening, the 3 of them had dinner at Elena's house. As they sat around the small kitchen table sharing stories and laughter, Marcus realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the hollow satisfaction of closing a big deal or beating a competitor, but the deep contentment of being surrounded by people who knew the worst about you and loved you anyway. "You know," Marcus said as they finished Elena's famous apple pie, "I used to think losing my ability to walk was the worst thing that ever happened to me." "And now?" Elena asked. Marcus looked at Luna, who was trying to balance a spoon on her nose, and at Elena, whose eyes sparkled with the same warmth that had made her irreplaceable all those years ago. Now, I think it might have been the best thing. If I hadn't lost everything, I never would have found what really mattered. Luna successfully balanced the spoon and grinned triumphantly. See? Sometimes falling down is just the first step to standing up stronger, Marcus laughed. When did you get so wise? I learned from the best, Luna said, reaching for Elena's hand. Grandma Elena taught me that broken things can become beautiful things if you're willing to do the work of putting them back together. And what kind of work is that? Marcus asked. Luna's answer was simple but profound. The work of loving people, even when they make mistakes. The work of forgiving even when it's hard. The work of believing that everyone deserves a second chance to become who they're supposed to be. As Marcus drove home that night, he realized that Luna was right. He wasn't the same man he'd been before his accident. He was better, stronger, more grateful, more aware of what truly mattered. The boy who had built an empire on being right about everything had learned that being wrong about something important was sometimes the beginning of wisdom. The man who had measured his worth by his net worth had discovered that the most valuable things in life couldn't be bought or sold. The CEO who had believed that control was everything had found peace in surrendering to forces larger than himself. Marcus Wellington could walk again, but more importantly, he had learned how to live again. And in a small blue house on Maple Street, Elena Vasquez tucked her granddaughter into bed with a story about second chances and the mysterious ways that broken hearts find each other and heal together. Is it really true, Grandma? Luna asked sleepily. Can people really change that much? Elena smoothed Luna's curly hair and smiled. Oh, my dear girl, people can become anything they decide to become. The only question is whether they're brave enough to do the work. And was Mr. Marcus brave enough? What do you think? Luna yawned and closed her eyes. I think he was always brave enough. He just forgot for a while, but that's okay. Sometimes we all forget who we really are. That's why we need people to remind us. And as Luna drifted off to sleep, Elena whispered a prayer of gratitude for the mysterious ways that love finds a way to heal what seems beyond healing, and for little girls who see the world not as it is, but as it could be. Marcus Wellington learned to walk again. But the miracle wasn't in his legs. It was in his heart's journey back to the truth that had been there all along, that every ending is also a beginning, and every fall is just another chance to rise.